San Francisco is beset by a series of random murders without motive or pattern. Police are taunted by phone calls and letters while the city is seized by fear. Who could be the killer? A violent truck driver, a mild mannered mailman, or even a cop? Hello, everyone. I'm Caleb Leger,
I'm Connor Eyzaguirre.
and welcome to a new episode of Beyond the Bad. All right, today we'll be talking about the horror film which I couldn't believe was made during this time, 1971. So Zodiac Killer, um, made during the height of the murders with the intention to try to capture the killer. So our heart was technically in the right place. The film would instead come and go, becoming more of an oddity in the horror genre and true crime history. With that, I'll shoot it over to Connor for the scores.
The fact that a studio actually made a slasher flick about an active serial killer in the midst of his killing spree in an attempt to try and lure the killer to the theater so they could get him sounds like a way better movie that I wish had been made. Uh, the Zodiac Killer does not have a critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. It does, however, have an 18% audience score, which is more than enough for us. And that's fucking pathetic. So no critics consensus because not enough critics, frankly, could be bothered.
Well, I mean, it wasn't even really we into development, but this was not meant to be like shown and reviewed. It was literally poorly made to try to capture the killer because of what they thought it would work. Which I mean, like in a way, kind of speaks to like the time period of like how scared people were. Because I mean, technically at this time, the killings weren't necessarily going on. The cops were still getting letters. There were still like him admitting to crimes that may or may not have been his doing in and around the area. Um, so like the city was still gripped by folks. The letters didn't stop till like 1974 or something like that. And when they finally just ceased completely. Um, so like if anything, it's like a time capsule of like how people were reacting to the point that someone said, "Hey, maybe if we make a movie, we can convince and do a premiere that will convince this killer who clearly wants attention to come to premiere. We can catch him." And everyone was okay with it. Again, kind of like that paranoia at the time that I don't think they could probably get away with now, obviously, but it's definitely a time capsule, if anything.
Yeah, what set Zodiac apart from a lot of other killers was the taunting, the threats that didn't happen. I'm going to shoot a bus full of kids. I'm going to blow up a hospital, shit like that. That he never actually followed through on. It was just to incite panic and make people remember him, which is really fucked. But I find it funny that this movie and then Dirty Harry also came out in 1971 and was also based on uh, Dave Toschi, who was the lead on the Zodiac investigation. He inspired Dirty Harry, and then I think it was the Scorpio killer in that movie was Zodiac. So 71 had a lot of these, a lot of interesting pop culture connections to maybe the most infamous American serial killer of all time. And we never
Yeah.
got.
So instead, yeah, well, yeah, still unsolved case. Um, start argue with I'd argue with in Dirty Harry's case, they at least just used elements to make it a fictional, entertaining movie. And the Dirty Harry series, for the most part, is pretty like consistently good, in my opinion. So in that case, it worked. But again, they were actually just using it to make an original story. But actually, it's great. It's my question, which I thought of much quicker than I have past couple of weeks episodes, admittedly. Um, and that is, kind of talk about what him being a serial killer, right? So I figured it's kind of a two-part question that I think is really good. So it's a two-parter. First one, taking into account America's obsession with true crime, along with obviously horror, which this one's kind of dipping his toes in both worlds. Do you feel, especially when in the case of true crime, and how popular it is now, do you feel that there is a danger of being exploitative with this stuff? And if so, what would you say would be the line if there was one?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely think that this stuff's exploitative, especially when you take real tragedy and turn it into like popcorn horror. I think that's wrong. That's the line for me. Like films like 2007 Zodiac, David Fincher's version of the retelling of this story. It treats the victims with respect. It treats the investigation with respect. It retells the story as it actually unfolded. In that case, I see nothing wrong with that. I see that as a dramatization of real life events. But a film like The Zodiac Killer, or From Hell, or I don't know, I can't think of any more off the top of my head, but there's a shit ton of these movies that turn real life monsters into Jason Voorhees equivalents. I find that pretty disrespectful. You got to know your audience, and you got to understand that this shit really happened, and there's living people who were connected to that, who are hurt by this shit, and that's where that's where it starts to become a problem for me.
Yeah, fair. That's fair. I'm kind of with you. I think when you're making, I mean, obviously, like there's I hate to sound like a fucking like money hungry like producer, but there's obviously a market for this stuff. It's
Yeah.
especially nowadays, it's become a huge thing for people. Um, there's a market for it, and I'm with you, especially not necessarily worrying about the documentary side, which is a whole different thing when it comes to that, but like the more the traumatization side of it. For me, a recent one was obviously the one that came out last year on Netflix. I didn't want to get an uproar about, but Dahmer. That was one that to me, I actually thought the uproar was a little unwarranted because it went with the Zodiac approach of like, we're not trying to centralize this case. We were just telling you the fucking, we're telling you the facts. We're showing you what happened. We're not trying to take a stance of like, well, this is why he's a bad guy. It was just showing you like, look, we're not saying because of this upbringing. We're just showing you what we know based off records, based off testimony, things like that, right? With the case. And it to me wasn't doing that. Again, a lot of the uproar mainly had to do with the fact that Netflix put it in its LGBT category, even though a lot of people actually have been I've read both sides. Obviously I've seen both sides of it. I personally do tend to lead on the side that yes, I understand this is a very dark moment in the history of the LGBTQ community, but it is an unfortunate part of the history. Dahmer was a gay man targeting people in that community because he knew he could get away with it. So it's a dark moment, and it's sad and tragic, but it is unfortunately a part of the history.
Do you think that when they produce the Gacy story, which I believe was the next one they're going to do, you think they're going to do it again and put that in the LGBTQ section as well?
I don't think they will to avoid the backlash this time. Again, I'm of that mind that unfortunately no history, especially as we're seeing right now with us having to kind of have a reckoning with our own history as America in general. No history is fully good. It was always bad.
Yeah.
And again, and I'm not saying I don't get the side that was like, take it out of that category. That's not the history we want represented. I'm not saying I don't understand that at all. But I also one of those I'm like, no, for me, history needs to be unbiased. It needs to be both good and bad. And by taking what you want out of it, you're creating a biased history. Because if anything, I look at people like not necessarily like Gacy, but also Dahmer, like what, and you look at like his childhood in general, and like the things that probably could have been done to avoid making him into the monster he fucking became. And one of those biggest things is that this was a guy that wasn't comfortable with his sexuality, had parents that didn't want to broach the subject at all. He hated himself, and he took it out on a community that, again, he knew he could get away with it at the time. So it's one to me. It told that so it's like, no, you need to, again, parents, be fucking willing, be open to your kids' sexuality, things like that. But again, that's just one for me.
That's a good point, but also that's not that doesn't that's not the same for all these guys.
Right,
it's not
right.
always
I get, yeah,
yeah, it's different for every person, and
Mm.
You got to be able to, if you're going to do this, if you're going to dramatize real life tragedy like this, then you've got to know your audience. You got to be able to do it without glamorizing or sympathizing for the villain. You got to take the power away from the Zodiac
Right.
Killer, from Jeffrey Dahmer, from Ted Bundy. Like they have to be the butt of the joke. They have to be the asshole. If you start talking about their troubled
Yeah.
childhood or like giving them, an excuse, then it turns into exploitation.
Yeah. I think, obviously if you're going to do something that, especially in a show like Dahmer or Gacy's probably going to do the same damn thing. When they're showing their full story, you're going to see their childhood. As long as your stance is not saying like, "Hey, this is why he turned out," or I mean, granted, sometimes it is showing you probably an insight into how they turn into what they turn into, but you're not taking like the sympathetic, like, "Oh, poor him," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but you're just showing like, look, we're not taking a stance. We're just showing you based off knowledge we have from all this stuff their childhood and things that could have possibly led to them becoming the monster they are. As long as, like you said, then they're butt joke, they're portrayed as the monster they are. I'm cool with it. You know what I mean? Like, we're not trying to make them sympathetic. We're just like, it's taking that sense of like, no, this guy's a fucking monster that needed to be stopped. We're just telling the story. Um, I can get down with that. With that said, when they announced the thing with Gacy, I wasn't actually down with that. I was like, okay, now this feels like we're starting to get close to exploitation with this. Like, hey, we had a huge hit with this show with Dahmer, and I know I can show you that because I watched it, but let's keep it going. You know what I mean? Like, okay, let's keep doing this. Now Gacy, what's next? Fucking Bundy. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to keep going.
True. But just to be devil's advocate here, because I want to bring it up because I think it's an interesting idea. How is that different from, say, The People versus O.J. Simpson? Like, that was
That's
also a story of a real life murder that occurred that was dramatized and turned into kind of pop culture. So, like, at what point is it too much or not enough? Like, I don't know. Like,
it.
what qualifies a murder to be considered like cinematic?
Mm-hmm. I That no, you bring up a very good point. Actually, really glad you brought that up. That's a very good point. It is tough because yeah, I didn't watch that one. I think Ryan Murphy was behind that too. He's making a fucking apparently a killing in the true crime space. Um, but I had heard about. I know a lot of people that liked it. It's tough because like you said, you're dealing with people that this was a real life thing. People, someone did actually die. OJ fucking killed someone and got away with it. Um it's a real thing and it does become tough because you gotta just hope that they're as a viewer you have to hope that they're doing it out of more so respect and just wanting to tell this story
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like let's try glamorize it. You have to hope. Obviously they can do the press junket all day, they can tell you what they want to tell you, and you just have to hope they're being genuine at the same time. And again, kind of with that show, with obviously Dahmer last year and the backlash that came out of it, do I understand people that don't want to watch it? They're like, no, I don't want to do it. Obviously, victims, family members, victims, I don't want to watch it. People are just like, I'm not partaking in that. I absolutely understand that. I absolutely get it. If you're that's like, dude, I'm not into that stuff. I don't want to watch it. I get that. For me personally, my line was drawn when, oh God, was it Casey Anthony on the
Yeah.
fucking on Peacock? Okay,
Yeah.
it was Casey Anthony, the one that killed her kids.
Mm-hmm.
When she got that bullshit show to tell more of her story, when we all know she did it, that to me was my line. Like that was my line. And I
Yeah.
will not watch that. Fuck that. I'm not giving her that fucking view.
It's a way different situation when these pricks try to tell their own story and make them out to be the victim or the hero or something. Then it's just straight up bullshit, and I want nothing to do with it. But also, I wonder, like, when it comes to biopics about tragedy, it's not always going to be fucking, A League of Their Own or, uh, you know, fucking Invincible or something. It's not always the inspirational, they did it, woo. Sometimes it's, movie like World Trade Center or Saving Private Ryan, which deal with horrific tragedy that affected a lot of people's lives, in similar ways than these movies do. but those films never get this kind of, backlash.
No, or and I think, and especially okay, and I want to kind of hone in on the same part, Ryan, and add Schindler's List to this conversation because it's both with Spielberg. Um, I think for a lot of people with that, it's just you could tell Spielberg was very genuine in those movies of not wanting to be exploitative, not wanting to glamorize something, but tell what to him felt like very important stories to share. Case of Schindler's List, obviously, what Schindler did for thousands of Jewish people during World War II. He felt, it was very important. And I have seen both. Luckily, Schindler's List is a really good film, one of Liam Neeson's best performances. So to me, I think that's why people didn't push back on that. And in Saving Private Ryan, I think people didn't push back on that because again, he treated it with respect. He felt it was an important story to tell. In a weird way, going for the type of realism he went for, especially in that opening uh D-Day segment,
Yeah.
he did it in a way because that was a line he was teetering on, in my opinion. That if he went too far, it would have just been this exploitative gore fest of an opening scene that shit on a very historic moment in World War II. That as great it was for as great of an Allied victory was, we lost thousands of lives that day. But he did in a way that it was brutal, it was violent, but he kept it on that line for you to really feel what thousands of American of men went through that day. The fear, the just the sheer like bravery and courage to face what they faced that day, knowing that a lot of them probably aren't going home. And the way he approached at least that opening scene in particular was done in such a way that it felt respectful watching it to me. And now like him trying to be like, I can't wait to show you these amazing fucking, because it is a gory opening scene, like blood-filled opening scenes of my World War II movie. I think that's why Spielberg has been able to not get the backlash, is that people could tell there was respect with both those films.
I guess when it comes to just, dramatized real life tragedy, like pretty much every other aspect of art, it's widely subjective, and you just kind of have to have some faith that the filmmakers are going to treat this with respect and tell the story correctly. You just got to hope for that, and it's not always going to work out, as we're going to talk about today. But I think for the most part, they do their best.
Yeah, I think I like to think in a lot of cases the intentions are good, because sometimes like I've seen the notes if the tensions aren't good, you can tell. Like it's really easy to tell. We're like, okay, you're clearly not wanting to do this for the right reasons. Um,
That's true.
yeah. You can tell. I do think, and as we kind of saw recently, without getting too into it, I just don't have the energy to get too into it. But with the recent, it wasn't even like a controversial game, but the recent stuff going on with Hogwarts Legacy since it released, right? Um, with social media, he used to say there weren't people that were outraged by Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, but there wasn't social media like there is now. You know what I mean? And now that the people that get outraged have the ability to get online and make their voice known. Um, so that could also be a bit of it. A lot of time with all this newer stuff coming out is that now people can get online and really let people know about it.
That's a very good point. Nowadays, the outrage is a lot louder because people have a voice and a platform to expel it. So yeah, that's a good point. People might have
Yeah,
been pissed about
I
this
mean,
stuff forever, but now they're able to talk about it.
yeah, exactly. And like I said, and that's even outside of. I mean, like I said, outside of like the more darker murder stuff we're talking about, but looking at like Hogwarts Legacy, all the whole shit going on with DC and the fucking Snyderverse. Like, there seems to be a group just wanting to get enraged about something, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes not for great reasons, and make their voice known, and that happens a lot nowadays.
Yeah, there's been a 7,000% uptick in complainy Carls lately, and
Yeah, it's funny. Oh, sorry. It's funny. In a lot of cases, it backfires on them. Like in the case of Hogwarts Legacy, it's like a huge, huge hit, and it's actually getting really good reviews. So like it backfired horrendously.
it often does. Dahmer also was a enormous hit for Netflix. Evan Peters won an Emmy or not an Emmy, Golden Globe for his portrayal of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Okay. that actually brings up a good question that's probably in my head. How do you feel about, and again, I watched it and I did generally think Evan Peters was really, really good. Like the guy was good in the role. What do you think of actors getting award recognition and or winning for portraying a character like Dahmer, like these serial killers? You think that's
I
like different from like anything else, or
I put absolutely no responsibility on the actor. To them, that is a role, that is a script, that is a performance. But the people developing this, they should be the ones who have to treat this with the utmost respect. The actor is just saying the words, doing their best to portray the person on the page. So
okay? So you're
I
cool
don't
with
have
them.
any beef with Evan Peters over any of that.
Okay, and so I'm saying like you're cool with them getting the, even though you haven't seen it, you're okay with like him getting like a Golden Glove for it if
Yeah,
he
if he deserved it,
deserved
if
it.
it was a very good performance, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, I was just wondering if like there's a difference for you in like that award segment of it, with like serial killers stuff like that. I watched Dahmer. I agree personally. Like he inhabited that role like no other. It was terrifying. Like he was Dahmer. Like you felt it in his performance. So
It's what I hear. Yeah. It's take for instance, the first one that popped into my head was Christoph Waltz in Inglorious Bastards. Hans Landa might not be a real person, but he's a Nazi. The character's a Nazi. Does that mean that we are going to condemn Christoph Waltz for playing that character? No, not at all. Bruno Ganz played Hitler in Downfall, who's amazing. Bruno Ganz is not a Nazi. Like, Evan Peters didn't butcher a bunch of people. It's, actor and performance, very different animals. And we got to remember that shit because sometimes that line gets blurred and then people start being crazy.
yeah, and luckily it's not played for Evan Peters. He's a sane, good guy. I say that because everyone makes the point with him that he plays a lot of really dark characters, but is like apparently a super nice dude.
Did nobody watch
Like,
X-Men? Quicksilver was bubbly and fun.
I remember watching going, hey, he's actually happy in this one.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I remember when people got, up in arms, well, not all people, but crazy people went nuts at Bradley Cooper when they realized he was not a gung-ho MAGA sniper dude like Chris Kyle when he played him in American Sniper. And they were like, how dare he? It's like, what do you mean, how dare he? He's an actor. He's not Chris Kyle. It's separate. Not everybody's
Yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis. Not everybody's going to live in that skin for 2 fucking years. That's not how it works for most
No.
people.
Their job, especially in the case of like playing a real life person, not necessarily like a fake, original character, is to try to inhabit that person as they are in real life. That's their role when they take on a real, a person. So it's like they're acting guys, like they're becoming that person for the show or movie.
Well, I'd argue that it's less about portraying them in real life and way more about portraying them as they are written in the script. Because Clint Eastwood very much had an agenda with American Sniper. He did not portray Chris Kyle as accurately as he could, leading to a more propaganda-esque picture. So, again, that does not
okay.
fall
Fair enough. Fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, fair point on that one. Or like with Lone Sniper, which are not Lone Sniper, Lone Survivor. Jesus, Lone Survivor. Mark Wahlberg. One I actually really like, but if you actually look into it, there's a lot of conflicting accounts on the actual event, and the guy he went through it may have fibbed on some stuff.
Yeah.
But again, that's not on Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, it's not on Mark Wahlberg. And also,
written.
Yeah, it's what's written in these films. They're not documentaries. They're dramatizations. They're biopics. They're taking real stories and making them as cinematic as possible while still trying to maintain the spirit of the true story. That's why Isabel and I started Fake True Stories. It's because these, to point out the problems with these movies. Because a lot of people just watch this and assume that's exactly what happened, and that's just not right.
Yeah, no, and I don't really, and for me, like, and I'm not like don't think I'm shitting on like Fake True Stories or anything. I don't necessarily blame the film, because at the end of the day, like, life is boring. Like, cinema has to cinema, if you will, for like a better term here.
I love these movies. I love biopics. I think they're fun. I think they lead me to like finding out about things, and then I do additional research and I find out the truth about it. That's what they should do.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that general audiences, I blame more than anything, because they just, like you said, they watch and go, okay, without doing any. And we live in a world now where I'm like, you could like, okay, again, like sticking with the world of serial killers and stuff in this scenario, Dahmer, if you had a problem with the show, well, guess what? There is like at least 10 different goddamn documentaries on Netflix alone, probably, plus all the other streaming apps I know you probably have, to get an actual full
Yeah.
unbiased take on it. And that's just shows and movies. There's podcasts, there's books, there's all sorts of things you can pursue that get rid of all the drama and just tell you the facts if you are that interested after watching the show or movie.
You can go on YouTube right now and listen to Jeffrey Dahmer himself talking about why he's in prison and why he did what he did. He doesn't say much, and he's fucking scary, but he's there. You know, a lot of films, a lot of, dramatizations of real life stuff, they don't really do as diligent research as they should. Documentaries and podcasts, that's typically where you want to go if you want to actually learn about this shit.
Mm-hmm. And what's funny is that even the ones that do try to be diligent, they will pull from the shit that people should be reading. Like they'll pull from those books and those, those documentaries where they're like, okay, we'll pull from that for this. And I'm like, so even they're doing it to make their dramatic take on it, but people just don't want to do the extra leg.
We all hated homework in school, and that hasn't changed. I love that all of that basically rolled all the way back to people suck.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting such a great conversation on that. I kind of was. I was kind of like, I think this is a good question. So
yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. That was a great topic of discussion there. That was nice.
Yeah. It helps when like the movie gives it to me. Admittedly, sometimes I'm sitting there going, what did this movie get me to ask? Because I don't know. So with that, unless we could I probably go on quite a bit on this one. We can go ahead and move on to development hell if you're ready.
Right on. Let's do it.
All right. So this one's gonna be interesting. So there's the big thing you're waiting for, the release of this. I'll get to that at the end. Let's get through some other stuff first, ladies and gentlemen. So based on the well-known Zodiac Killer, who was active in the late 60s and ceased running communications around 1974, is when police stopped getting communication from him. The film was mostly made as a way to hopefully capture the killer, like we talked about earlier. In both a 2012 and a 2017 interview, director Tom Hansen would confirm this, as he figured the killer wouldn't be able to resist attending the film's premiere. Look, I'll say this much. Like, I don't agree with making this film at the time, but at least like the heart was like, at least like, it was a misguided, but in the right place. You know what I mean? Like, hey, let's try to capture this guy. I'm not saying they went about it in the best way, but at least, it's like, what can I do to try to capture this dude? And if you didn't count like him sending the letters and clearly wanting attention, I kind of get why they thought this would work.
Well, yeah, but also there's a lot of ego behind this. It's like, hey, I know how to catch this guy. I'm going to make a movie. I'm going to catch this dude. I'm going to be famous for being the guy who caught the Zodiac Killer. And also, like, I mean, the variables, they had to count on Zodiac, knowing about the movie, or, being invited to the premiere, or, it's the odds of this working are pretty fucking astronomical.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a good plan, but it's a plan.
It's more than the SFPD had. I'll say that.
Yeah. At least this guy's trying something. They just went, we don't know.
Yeah. The investigation is ongoing. I bet they said that to the press just once a fucking week.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, he did get help, not from us, not from the San Francisco Police Department, though. So to help him, he got San Francisco Chronicle journalist Paul Avery would supply a forward for the film, play an active role in the production. He was brought on because he was one of the biggest journalists writing about the Zodiac Killer during the killings. He was receiving, to the point that he was receiving death threats and letters from Zodiac Killer himself. He was investigating so hard. I'm pretty sure he is a character in the Fincher film. Am I right?
He is indeed.
I've seen it once. It's been years, so I can't remember.
I recommend watching it just for kicks. It is a fantastic movie and super creepy, and the definitive version of this story, and actually pretty damn accurate.
I remember liking it. It's just I've never gotten around to watching it again. But yeah,
Paul Avery is played by Robert Downey Jr. in the movie, and he was the journalist who got heavily involved tried to coax Zodiac into out of hiding by calling him impotent and you know like all that shit, and that's why Zodiac was like going after him verbally. I don't think he ever actually intended to do anything. But yeah, Paul Avery, a bit of a attention whore, a bit of a publicity junkie. So I'm not surprised that he would, become a consultant on this weird ass movie.
Yeah. So I was like, I didn't even think about it until I was like, we were talking. I was like, oh wait, Zodiac, David Fincher. Pretty sure Paul Avery was a character in that movie. I just can't remember who. Um, I do need to rewatch it when I got time. I know it's like 3 hours long. Like I said, I didn't hate it. It was one of those when I was like, ooh, David Fincher did a movie on the Zodiac Killer, and I watched it. I was like, oh, this was really good. And then I just never got around to watching it again. That's really all that happened.
I liked it, and then I met Austin, and then he convinced me that it really is a masterpiece.
Yeah, no, I need to recheck it. I've heard like when it comes to this whole thing, it's one of the most like definitive takes on this whole thing. So, but yeah, like we're talking about, so good old Paul Avery. Like I mentioned, he was receiving several death threats and those from the actual killer because of that. And as I think you do, if I recall, you do see in Fincher's Zodiac, he would become slightly paranoid. Like he actually was like getting pretty worried that Zodiac was going to kill him. And it got to the point that he even thought the main actor Hal Reed, who spoiler plays the fucking Zodiac killer in this film. Yeah, we'll get into that later on down the road, I'm sure. He was convinced he was the actual Zodiac for whatever fucking reason.
That is some Shadow of the Vampire shit. And I again, why not make that movie? Like, I want to see that movie. And a guy tries to make a movie to catch an active serial killer and accidentally casts the actual killer in the lead of the killer. That's a great movie.
Yeah, great. I'm pretty sure technically like Troma did a variation of that with Terraforming, but I could be wrong. I'll have to ask Josh.
It sounded too good to not have been done yet.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know it's like the plot is like they're making a horror film, but then there's a killer on set killing everyone.
It's a very meta. I like that. I love that meta shit.
Oh yeah. And this is again further pointing to his paranoia, ladies and gentlemen. So set to have dinner with Hanson at a restaurant nearby the area the film was at the time premiering. He would get so worried that he purposely waited in an alleyway near the restaurant and waited for Hanson to finally come up to follow him inside.
God, if I was a Zodiac killer, that would have been my opportunity to kill his ass. How ironic!
Yeah, that's what took.
Like Paul Avery gets stabbed to death by the Zodiac killer as he's watching fucking Hal Reed walk into the restaurant. He's like, "Oh, I was wrong," and that's the last thing he thinks.
But I love how you picked an alleyway. I'm like, if you're that paranoid, why don't you pick lots of people? But I think I know his mindset is like, no, there's people. One of them could be it. Let me go into the alleyway and hide. Like, but that's where he would go because no one can see you.
Here's a bright idea, Paul. Wait in the restaurant.
Yeah, right in the restaurant. I doubt the killer's in the crowded restaurant where people are eating.
And if so, he's not going to do anything in the restaurant.
Yeah,
paranoia, man. It really, there's no quantifying it.
No, and like I said, if you want to see more of that, again, if really more of anything what we're talking about, David Fincher's Zodiac. You see, I do remember, like I said, Downey Jr. played part of him like getting slowly paranoid as the film like progressed, and I think he was like drinking more and everything. Like it was bad.
Yeah, he completely loses everything. Mark Ruffalo plays Dave Toschi, the cop in charge of the investigation, and Robert Graysmith, the cartoonist who ends up writing the book about Zodiac, the definitive book. He's played by Jake Gyllenhaal. So it's a great triple threat of character actors. It's Iron Man, the Hulk, and Mysterio trying to solve a crime. It's great.
Yeah. So, but we're going to be talking about this great film. The film before again, just some more fun stuff before we get into. I know everyone's waiting to space for the insane premiere story I got on this, but we'll get to it. So the film itself was shot a little bit guerrilla style because apparently they didn't have permits for any of the locations they were shooting at.
Are you telling me that they staged Zodiac murders without permits in San Francisco during the Zodiac killing spree?
Yes, I am.
Oh my God. They are lucky no one was shot by the cops. Holy shit. Wow.
That was like, why do you think that's a good idea?
Oh my God, that's amazing. Shit. The brass
I
cojones
look
on Tom Hansen to go through with that.
and look. Okay, don't get me wrong. I've heard plenty of stories of like very low budget indie stuff having to kind of guerrilla style and shoot someone real quick that they don't have a permit for, but it's not usually involving a story involving a serial killer, but the actual one is active in real life.
Yeah, and recreating his fucking spree. I gotta say, pretty accurately. Like the parts that weren't the Zodiac murders were fucking ridiculous, but the actual Zodiac murders, the real ones, were replicated pretty well.
Yeah, those parts I'm saving a little bit of that from my roads, but yes,
Yeah.
give you a hint.
Just surprised that Tom Hansen would kind of half-ass the rest of this, but then it's almost like he was showing Zodiac, like, your life flashes before your eyes, and then I got you at the end of the premiere. I think that's probably what he was picturing.
Oh, probably. I got you, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, this was his fucking, this was Quentin the Shark, but real life and way less, successful.
Oh, yeah, real life, and the shark didn't take the bite at all.
No, the shark swam away because he sensed the fucking trap.
Yeah, or he did say it, or he did see it, and he just got away scot free.
Wouldn't it be great if he was there and he walked out?
Oh, it'd be fucking honestly kind of funny. It's like horrendous as that sounds. I understand what he did was terrible, but kind of funny.
He's just watching the murders. He's like, I had a much bigger knife. Nah, she was over there. Like, this isn't even. I'm leaving. This is terrible.
I shot him twice, not 3 times.
Do your research, Tom, and then he just left. Jesus.
All right. There's this is a little fun fact I have. Let's do fun facts. First one ends a little bit trashy, but starting out with the first one, the one scene that features the amazingly creepy old ass neighbor just trimming his bushes, which I'll get more into how I feel about that scene later, is none other than Doodles Weaver. If you're wondering why that last name sounds familiar, that is the uncle of Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney had an uncle named Doodles.
She had an uncle named Doodles.
Well, now we see how she was able to break into the biz.
Yep.
Give Uncle Doodles a call.
He was a talk show host. Apparently, he was like a talk show host on some like late night thing. But unfortunately, I know. I was like, wow. I was like, cool that was her uncle. But Doodles, who came up with that name?
If we were still giving these episodes funny titles, 100% this one would be called Uncle Doodles. That's great.
Oh, it's awesome. This would end in some tragedy though. He would commit suicide in 1983 by shooting himself twice in the chest due to being despondent over his failing health. So,
fuck.
Doodles.
That is not the pleasant turn I was expecting in the saga of Uncle Doodles. Damn.
That's what you got. That's what happened to Uncle Doodles.
Oh man, I get it though. If you get a terminal diagnosis, you're like, "Fuck it, I'm going out my way." I get it.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to end with that. This next fun fact is kind of interesting though. I promise. You remember the scene where Grover attacks his family and claims he's a Zodiac before they shoot him?
Oh, I do.
Okay. So apparently that's based on a real life incident that happened during the height of the case, and actually almost to the T, where this drug abuser dude went over to his house, attacked his wife and kids, held his daughter like hostage outside because the mom ran out with the son, forgot the daughter, ran outside the front door with his daughter hostage, and at one point started yelling, "I'm the Zodiac Killer! I'm the Zodiac Killer!" Cops got it diffused by having people come into the back because they couldn't get a shot up front, so they could take a shot from behind and get the daughter, pulled away, and then they fucking killed him. And then they, a couple, I think shortly after ruled him out as an actual suspect.
Shit, I'm gonna considering I'm just looking at the film itself, I'm gonna keep my award where it is. But I have some thoughts about that, and I can't believe that actually fucking happened. Oh my god. Well, I mean, suicide by cop, you couldn't do it better than claiming you're the Zodiac killer in 1971 while waving a gun and threatening to kill your daughter.
I like how I unintentionally kind of like somewhat ruined your one of your awards. I wasn't even trying.
I straight up said in my reward, I think I said, like, how stupid do you have to be to do something like that? And apparently, well, it happened.
God. It happened. Someone was stupid enough.
Yeesh.
Oh, wow. The reactions on these two facts have been kind of fun.
Oh. There's so much dark ass drama attached to this movie that's not even like connected to the killing spree. It's just additional sad shit that happened adjacent to the killing spree.
Yes.
I was not prepared for that.
Well, buckle up, Buckaroo. No, I'm kidding, because now we're here. We're going to talk about the screening. Are you ready for all this nonsense?
Bring it on.
All right. Hansen rented the Golden Gate Theater in San Francisco, obviously, and premiered the film in April of 1971 with the intention, like we talked about, of luring the real Zodiac Killer to one of the screenings. One of the ways he decided to do that was apparently Kawasaki, yes, the motorcycle company, sponsored the event and offered a motorcycle as a prize to any audience member who wrote the best answer to "I believe the Zodiac kills because" on yellow cards being handed out at the door.
Was the motorcycle under like a giant box with like a rope tied and a stick tied to it? So like if Zodiac went under there to get the motorcycle, he just pull the rope and he got him, because that's how this is starting to sound.
You remember the Family Guy episode, I think, with James Woods, and they have used the candy or whatever it was?
Yeah. Is that but a fucking motorcycle?
Unfortunately, no. It's a little bit more ridiculous than that. Hansen set up a team to analyze each entry for handwriting which matched the killer and planned to confront them himself in the lobby if a match was found. Literally, I got you, son of a bitch.
Was he packing? Did he have a security team? Like, how was he planning to apprehend this guy if he got him?
He was going to Chris Hansen the shit out of it.
No, he's going to Tom Hansen.
Sit down.
The shit out of this.
Sit down. Have a cookie.
But
why are you here?
So his whole plan was, I'm going to get the handwriting and then I'm making a citizen's arrest.
Yes.
I almost wish he'd actually got him. I wish he'd found him. I wish this had worked just so I could see like how, the confrontation.
Oh my God. Can you imagine like the bonus feature on this film? On the physical release if that had happened?
This would be like in the Criterion collection. The guy would be known across the world. Zodiac's name would be in, mud. He'd be in prison being like, that fucking Tom Hansen. And it'd be awesome.
Yeah, so that was the fucking plan. He was going to match the handwriting and fucking go in there, probably packing some heat, and be like, finally, you son of a bitch, I caught you. I, Tom Hansen, caught you.
Were the cops aware of this plan? Like, did they have any faith in this? Was there an officer at the theater or anything?
I found nothing saying the cops were aware of this, so I wonder if they heard about it and went, "This is stupid, let the guy die," and they just left.
Yeah, probably. Considering the insane amount of like red herrings they got during this investigation, I'm sure they weren't thinking, yeah, the film director with no experience is going to make the citizen's arrest and catch him with the motorcycle. That'll happen. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he really has this one. God. Well, on one particular night. Now, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this case is still unsolved. So, but let's go down this rabbit hole because it's kind of fun. On one particular night, Hansen, Mr. Extraordinaire here, citizens arrested of the fucking century, encountered a man who, according to him, closely resembled the famous poster sketch, the one you're probably thinking of in your head right now, and had submitted more than one entry despite wanting to staff against multiple ones per person.
Well, obviously, he should get the chair. Poor, average man looking motherfucker just really wanted that motorcycle.
He wanted a Kawasaki.
Oh, this is great.
Now, due to the employee who was concealed in the submission box, fucking hidden apparently.
Oh, he was like in the box where they were putting the cards.
Apparently.
Oh, my God. This is amazing. Somebody has to make this movie. Somebody has to write the making of this movie as like a fucking, Tropic Thunder-esque comedy.
This 100%, I would love to watch this movie if it was done as just an over-the-top like comedy. Oh, well, apparently this gentleman was incapacitated in the box, so he failed Hansen.
Maybe he just got paper cutted to death or something.
Trying to keep my composure for this. Hansen had some other employees that were working that day to seize the man, who reportedly didn't even act surprised.
Huh.
They didn't even act surprised, Connor.
Well, I mean, he did, put his name more than once into the box. I mean, you live on the edge like that. You got to expect the heat to catch up with you eventually.
Oh, God. So now, as you know, Hansen's plan, right, was to confront this man himself since his arrest of the year. Hansen personally confronted him by claiming to be Zodiac victim Paul Stine's brother.
Ooh, I don't like that.
Yeah. That's apparently his grand plan. Let me act like a sibling to a victim.
Like Zodiac's gonna just be like, oh, well, shit. Of course, you know all about it. Then you got me.
You got me.
This isn't Scooby Doo. You can't take off the mask and
also,
be like, oh my God, it's this guy.
You're also assuming that the Zodiac actually remembers the fucking names of the people he murdered.
Yeah, I doubt it. People didn't really matter to him as shown by his victims.
Yeah. So based off like, a very infamous case with the couple at the lake, he just did his thing and moved on. Like he did not knowing about your name, taking anything, just killed and moved on.
Yeah,
and
he
then,
took just enough to leave enough clues for the police to, let them know it was him. Stuff that wasn't in the papers. That's as much as he did. But I don't think Paul Stine's brother was he even there.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So Zodiac's not going to be like, oh, you were a witness. Well, there it is. I guess I'm done. Curses foiled again. I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling directors. This is so
insane. And again, I can't stress this enough. Yeah. Oh, it is. And again, I can't stress enough. He's acting as if the Zodiac remembers every single person he's killed.
Or even gives a shit. It's like you can't guilt this dude into giving himself up.
Yeah. And based off what we know about Zodiac, that dude felt no goddamn guilt about what he did.
No, he relished it. If anything, you thinking it's him is just gonna, just make him hard. Like that's the only thing that's gonna happen here is like, oh, they think it's me, but they can't prove it.
So it's like the South Park scene where they're like rubbing their nipples whenever they screw someone over.
Yeah. Oh boy. So how'd this work out?
Well, Well, so apparently the man would nonchalantly respond that he was sorry to hear about the murder and then get let go. So the guy was like, "Oh, that sucks, dude." And they just let him go.
I'll have you know I'm Paul Stein's brother. That's a bummer, man. See ya. Okay. That's a fantastic result. Like for comedy's sake. It's like, well, sucks to be you. I'll catch you on the flip side. By the
Yeah.
way, your movie sucks.
Yeah, he just walked out. The next day, they did find out a little bit about the man. So the next day, it would be found out the man was staying in a nearby hotel. Apparently, he was a Vietnam veteran. So more than likely, Hansen just antagonized a vet.
Antagonized a vet, threatened him, and falsely accused him of mass murder, and just gave up.
Yeah.
Classy.
And the vet who has seen some shit, because it was again Vietnam vet, ladies and gentlemen, just went, that sucks, man. Like later and walked away.
Yeah, I bet he was unfazed because he'd seen some horrific shit, and this was more of this was a movie.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah,
he's
I'm
probably
going
like, I
home.
would just like, yeah, I just like the movie. It's why I keep watching it. I want the motorcycle.
Yeah. Like I'm going home, not on a motorcycle. Regrettably, I'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully you guys won't accuse me again. Jesus. Well, unfortunately, Hansen would not let this go. Hansen would become convinced the man was the Zodiac, and even he claims to have received letters from the killer later on, which were conveniently confiscated by the police.
My ass. No, no way did Tom Hansen get roped into the investigation. No, This dude was an attention whore if there ever was one.
If anything, the police went, "Oh my god, dude! Okay, give us the damn. Do you do? Okay, cool. Give them to us. Fuck off."
If there were letters, I bet they suspiciously matched Tom Hansen's handwriting, and praised the movie.
Cops they're like, "Yeah, we'll take it." As soon as they get to the station, they just fucking throw it away. Like it's clearly not the killer. This guy's crazy.
I wish they threw it away at Hansen's house in front of him. Like, yeah, of course, we'll log these into evidence as soon as we can as he's crumpling them and just chucks them into the garbage can and they walk out.
Ah, God, Hansen. Now, you're probably wondering what happened to the stand motorcycle that was offered as a prize.
I hope Zodiac stole it. I hope that's the only thing that actually happened with Zodiac's involvement in this is he walked in there and fucking stole the motorcycle.
That would be cool, but no. Since essentially the contest to win this motorcycle was essentially a scam, no one ever won the prize because they didn't think that through. And so Hansen had to give it away to eventually give it away to a friend of his.
That is some horseshit. You staged a phony movie premiere with phony guests and a phony prize. The least you could do is give away the phony prize. Let them have something.
At least give it to the Vietnam vet who you falsely accused and also apparently did more than one entry. So he clearly wanted that fucking motorcycle.
That is insane. But then he's like, here, friend, you take it. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the release strategy right there. Well, ultimately unsuccessful, obviously, in its goal. Film has mostly become known for its interesting, to say the least, release strategy and just entire reason for being.
Yeah, I saw at the beginning of the film, AGFA was, partially responsible for kind of digging this up. I forget what AGFA stands for, but they find old,
yeah, they're partnered with Vinegar Syndrome, so Vinegar Syndrome actually puts a lot of their stuff on their site to release.
Yeah.
I think
it's American Genre Film Archive. That's AGFA.
Yeah, I know they're one of the many partner labels for Vinegar Syndrome, so like it gives them that boost to get stuff out, and Vinegar Syndrome will release their shit. So I'm sure actually if I got on my Vinegar Syndrome app, I could probably find this movie by AGFA on Blu-ray. I haven't checked because they've been doing their Valentine's Day Peakorama, so basically their hardcore titles are reduced in price. So I haven't really been able to check because they're just really promoting that right now. But once that's done, I'll check just because I'm curious if it's on there.
I feel like as the host of Beyond the Bad, you should be owning every film we've talked about in the highest quality possible.
Yeah, probably. But
I
that
tried
also
that
means
with Filmgasm for a while, and we're almost to 250. It's not feasible.
I was like, that means I have to own fucking Freddy Got Fingered, and that's not happening.
Yeah, in like 4K.
Not happening. I may like some movies that people don't like, but I do not like that one. And I watched a movie with Pauly Shore last night, and that was actually a better time than anything I sat through with fucking Tom Green.
Ouch. That's really low praise.
Yep. Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge, actually a pretty good movie. And it was actually, luckily, it was like Pauly Shore's first like film role, so he wasn't like quote unquote like Pauly Shore, like his brand of comedy was much more subdued because it was his first film role.
Right on.
But yeah, with that little diatribe aside, unless you got anything else said, that's what I have for our fun-filled development hell. Yes.
I'll just say
All
that
right.
I wish, real quick, I just want to say, I wish Tom Hansen had sent the vet the motorcycle with like a Hallmark card on it that said, "Sorry, I accused you of serial murder." And then, like, a little
Yes,
smiley face and like
he
a
just
coupon
puts,
to Red Lobster or something.
but then he puts like P.S. A part of me still thinks you're the Zodiac.
Goddamn. All right.
God. Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, let's that was probably I'll say it, one of my more fun development holes I've had on here. So with that said though, let's move on to our awards and start with the Zack Snyder, aka the guy who, to all you Snyder fanboys, gave James Gunn his approval and his positive words of encouragement for the DC universe moving forward. So shut the hell up about the Snyderverse. All the worst scene.
It is the scene where Grover goes nuts over custody and gets his ass shot by the cops while screaming, "I'm the Zodiac."
How do you want to defend this now? The fact I gave you?
This whole subplot is so fucking weird. This hyper misogynist piece of shit who is just saying the worst things the whole movie. It's like he doesn't love his kid. He just doesn't want his wife to have her, and snaps, and then commit suicide by cop. And then I looked at my watch, like, I'm not even halfway through this thing yet. Like, so all of this was pointless. Like, I don't care about this guy. He's an asshole, clearly. In life, probably an asshole as well. So yeah, waste of time. It's an hour and 27. It's padded. This thing is padded. And this scene was just ridiculous because it's like, I never gave a shit about this guy to begin with. Why are you trying to make me care?
Yeah, I got more to say about the character in general, but yeah, even knowing that this was based off a real scene, that's the only reason I felt like they put this guy in, was so they could have a reason to explain why they put, a real life based scene into this movie. Kind of like how they do stuff with the Zodiac Killer. I'll get into in a minute. That's what I felt like. It was like, let's give this guy some backstories for this scene, and then the scene itself is kind of shitty because it ends up being completely useless for the rest of the film going forward.
Yeah, exactly. What do you got?
Mine, I kind of alluded to it earlier when we talked about good old Doodles, Uncle Doodles here. But mine was like the just out of nowhere scene of the mailman / killer, I should say, having a conversation with Uncle Doodles about how awful women are after they turn 20. This film goes out of its way to make every male like as horrendous as possible, so you think all of them are Zodiac Killer. And this scene like hammers it home because it's like there's no like prompt for this to happen. They're just shooting the shit. At first, like, oh, hey, you're back home. How are you doing? I'm doing good. How are you doing? And then, you know how awful women are when they turn 20 and they can like talk back and blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa, where did this come from?
Yeah, it's unprompted. It's unnecessary. Poor doodles.
Yeah. And then he has a whole weird thing. I almost put it down, but the whole weird line about how he likes them plump and juicy. And something about hearing an old man that could be like the age of like Hugh Hefner as we know him, aka 80 something years old, saying a woman young and juicy just makes my skin crawl a bit. There's just something about it that's kind of gross.
Yeah. Ugh. And
Like,
describing women
ugh.
the same way you describe, a fucking tomato at the grocery store is weird.
Yeah, look, if you can describe the same woman that you describe a steak that you love, you need to fucking we need to check on your priorities there, man. A steak is plump and juicy. Not not a woman. Well, unless that's a kink you guys have in the bedroom, and that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. A woman you know and you've talked about this with, go nuts. A woman you're lusting over from the bushes, no. Bad.
Yeah, a little weird. So yeah, that's why I put this in. This was of all of many scenes. This one was just made me kind of go, why and ew. One of my two reactions like, this is disgusting, and also just why? Why?
It's padded. They didn't have enough. They filmed the Zodiac murders, and then they're like, we got 15 minutes. What else can we put in this thing? How about every man in San Francisco hates women with a blinding rage? All right, roll with it.
Yeah. Let's do it. God. Ah, with that, God, the next one up, the M. Night Shyamalan. And God, look, even though we saw Knox Cabin, this still feels so right. The worst line. What did you come up with?
Mine comes early on in the movie when Grover and his pal Jerry are, going to check out these women because Grover's like, "Come on, I got four. What are you? Insert gay slur here."
God, the amount. I get it's like the 70s, but even I was like, okay, please, wow.
And Zodiac's like, "How dare you? Of course I'll have sex with one of your women, Jesus." And he walks over and he's like kind of apprehensive. And Grover goes, "Come on, don't be afraid. They're not gonna rape you. At least not here." Like, what the fuck, man? Why are you the worst person on earth?
Yeah, and also, why are you implying at least not here? What are you saying when we leave this place?
That is a very good question. I love his fake ass toupee. That's like his, good luck charm for getting laid. And when it comes off, and they're all like, you're bald," and he's like, "Fuck you. I'm not. Nobody calls me bald." Like it's such a weird scene.
It's so weird, and honestly, I forgot that was Grover because I just saw Japan. I was like, now who the fuck is this guy?
I can see past the fake
took
hair. Like, I recognize that piece of shit.
Oh, it took me a minute, and then I was like, oh wait, that was okay. But I was like, I think this movie I was quick to kind of tune out on this one. I'm not gonna lie.
I did have a runner up. I almost went with the scene where Grover goes nuts and gets killed when he just randomly goes, "That no good bitch. She called the cops." Is it made me think of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That no good bitch. Sounds like something Dennis would say.
Oh yeah, when talking about D, yeah, that no good goddamn bitch. Uh, uh I I picked something early on in the film too, actually. I mean, like I said, I almost wrote down that fucking I like them like plump and juicy, and so I was like ugh. So I almost wrote that down, but the one I picked, and I picked it because when the movie keeps going, it makes me go, why the fuck did this guy say that? If he's, if he is the ultimate fucking villain here, if he's a Zodiac, why would he act like this? Like, and it's when we think he's just a mailman, and he is shopping them off at this apartment and starts getting berated for whatever reason. I didn't even understand why he was getting berated. And at one point, he like starts to like almost crying. He's like, "Well, shut up! Quit picking on me." As soon as he's one, I hated the delivery, and then two, as the film goes on, and like again, like look, fuck it's spoiler alert, he's revealed to be a Zodiac killer. Why is he acting like this? if he knows he could easily just go in there and kill her later, as I'm part sure he probably did.
Quit being mean to me. Eh.
Stop it. I'm not touching you. Stop it.
It is weird. It's like, you got enough balls to stab two people in a park, but you can't talk back to the lady who's berating you about the mail.
Yeah, it's weird. And funny too, 'cause he starts out tough, like call my boss. I don't care. It's how it goes. And all of a sudden it's just like he breaks and I'm like, what the fuck? But then he'll like go to the bar and all of a sudden be Mr. Hotshot, like, oh, I can get the ladies. I know how to talk to a woman. And I'm like, no, because you got like berated and you buckled and we're like, stop it. Stop yelling at me. Why are you yelling at me?
Yeah, that was weird. I agree.
Yeah. I wrote it down like immediately, and then I honestly there was probably more dumb shit said, but I was so tuned out and wanting this thing to end. Um, yeah. Speaking of people that should end, Steven Seagal, the worst performance.
Um, this went to Bob Jones as Grover.
Hey, we agreed. I saved good old Bobby Boy here for the worst performance.
What a super prick. Just an absolute irredeemable asshole and not even perform that well from the get-go. He's just like, I don't even fucking care. I can get laid whenever I want. Hey, I scored last night. Random customer I'm delivering something to. Just a horrible human being. I love that guy's
Right.
like, how's your wife? And he's like, fuck you, ex-wife. He's terrible.
Yeah, he is awful. And like, and look, I'm not obviously like I'm not, I'm not saying you are, and we're not oblivious that there are guys out there that are just over the top, just misogynistic. Like they exist, they do exist, and I understand that. But especially when you're watching film, there's a certain point where it starts being like a realistic, like that person, I can see that person existing in real life, and it becomes a fucking caricature. And this is a caricature of a really awful human being that I got tired of watching within 5 minutes. From like, yeah, if the way he talks about women, calls everyone a bitch, and I can get laid, and then like I'm not ashamed to be a truck driver. You clearly are, because and then look, the whole scene, like you said, when they take his thing and they're like, you're bald. Like, as someone who is bald, aka me, it's called owning it, and that's how you don't get laughed at, gentlemen. When you put on toupee, then you'll get laughed at. In real life, own the goddamn baldness and you'll be fine. Um, so that was just like, okay, we clearly just did that scene to make him hate women more, whatever. And then yeah, the whole ending when he just like barges in his ex-wife's house to like try to grab his kid, who by the way, when she ran out, she had enough time to grab her daughter. I'm just saying, she's kind of a shitty mom.
Yeah, well, she fell in love with this prick. So how good can she be?
Yeah, because I thought that immediately. I was like, you just yelled your daughter's name like once. She didn't respond. You're like, okay, fuck you, kid. I'm out. I'm like, you had enough time to go in there and grab your kid.
Yeah. I mean, everyone else sucks too. There's no winners in this movie. Everyone's terrible, but he was just extra terrible.
Oh, he is so aggressive. Um, that it's like I put him down. The only runner up I had was actually our lead guy, Hal Reed. I just did not like his performance at all. Um, but God, Bob Jones, man, if you were told to be as like obnoxious as possible, you in that regard you excelled. But as a character, I hated watching him on screen.
Yeah, same. Ugh.
Ugh. So with that, let's see if we diverge here. The Michael Bay, the worst filmmaking decision.
This was the first thing I wrote down immediately because I said, why would anybody make a film about an active serial killer in the middle of the spree and just kind of assume, create a fiction out of it? The Zodiac Killer is a mailman with problems with women. It's like, you don't know that. It's gonna fuck with people's, people are gonna start attacking mailmen. Like the city
Yeah.
is genuinely scared, and you're not helping.
Yeah, I put it's that what you put. 'Cause I pretty much put the same thing. Of like the whole like giving him full backstory. Well, and also like look, okay, I know we've been hitting home obviously the realistic part, the fact that it's based on real life thing, but let's talk about like the filmmaking aspect of this. It's rooting itself in the most cliched understanding of what makes a serial killer by saying it's clearly the guy that um is not that actually that great with women, and is obsessed with like the not the rat, the fucking rabbit obsession in his house. Like it's going for stereotypes, it's going for tropes that, if I recall correctly, I want was Bundy active around this time, or was that after?
Bundy was in the 80s, I believe.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we didn't have the breakthrough in hey, this serial killers are, with the profile basically of, because that's the big thing, obviously, for those who know what Bundy is, like he kind of was obviously horrendous human being, but finally had the FBI kind of wake up to how these people are. But even before that, at the time, especially if you want a good thing, check out Mindhunter on Netflix. It kind of sees the beginnings of when the FBI said we have got to look at this different because it's not following the mold that we think it is. But this film does that. This film just falls on cliche of like, clearly this is the type of person that would be the killer because that's how it works. When,
Yeah.
as we kind of saw with the Zodiac, who the fuck knows? Because that person never got caught. We
True.
know it was someone fucking smart. Let's be honest. It was someone smart. We know that.
The behavioral science unit of the FBI was actually established in 1972, a year after this movie, and I bet the Zodiac killing spree was a big part of why they started looking into that shit.
Yeah, because again, again, I know it's an unsolved case, but like we know one thing, he was smart. Even if you actually look at the letters, they point out numerous times in his letters, the guy was clearly educated.
Yeah. I mean, just the
And
building of the ciphers alone points to somebody who could manipulate puzzles and create stuff that's has not been cracked to this day.
yeah, so it's like the fact that you had like we were talking about, and again, what we're talking about, the behavior science unit. If you want, it's more traumatization, but it is based off a book that the guys who were spearheading the project wrote. So if you want the full thing, read the book that they themselves wrote. But there is a really cool series that I really wish would get finished. It's not going to. Mindhunter, that kind of details them starting to look at serial killer profile differently. Like you were talking about, people like the Zodiac, Manson was another big one for them that kind of made them go like, okay, we need to look at this different.
True. And that show actually uses the transcripts that the real agents had with the killers as part of the show. So the dialogue is exactly what was said, which is brilliant and never shies away from the fact that these guys were, monsters, just absolute sadists. That is never up for debate. So it's a good
Yeah,
watch. It's dark, but it's a really good show.
yeah. So and that's why I say, like, when you're watching this, like it just feels weird. Like, and again, obviously the fact that they decided to do this while there's shit still going on, even if the killings were kind of like quote unquote ceased, but the letters were still coming, so there's still that fear still going on. The fact that they just felt the need to make this and give a whole backstory, and then that backstory is just on a I don't know, serial killer profile perspective of that time, on a film perspective, just go back into fucking cliches and stereotypes that probably aren't even true based off what little we know about the Zodiac.
FYI, the guy that the cops were pretty sure did do it uh, was in prison during the time the Zodiac letters stopped, and then they started as soon as he got out. So do with that information what you will. I don't believe in coincidence when it happens that much.
Yeah. So
We did Zodiac
that's
on Filmgasm a long time ago. If you want to check that out, so you can find that on the Filmgasm roster. Austin and I did Zodiac, went through the actual case, talked about the movie. It's a great one. So go ahead and check that out if you guys want a better version of this.
yeah. And also, as you can see, apparently we have I guess, a weird quote unquote obsession with Zodiac in this show that I didn't even think about.
I know that was a birthday episode for Austin, I believe. So that was like his pick. So yeah, we love that movie. This is a fascinating story, and I think we're all fascinated because we never caught the guy. Like he got away with it. So few known serial killers got away with it.
Yeah, even like BTK, Dennis Rader, he got so close, but then his dumb ass gone. How do you get a floppy disk? Like, god damn it.
That is
I mean,
the
I'm glad you got caught, but it's just so funny to me.
my favorite part was that when he was arrested, he was legitimately hurt that the cops lied to him about that. He was like, "How could the police lie?
Oh yeah.
They're police officers. They're supposed to uphold the law." Like as he's being arrested for horrific murders.
Yeah.
These people's moral compass is so fucking out of whack. When things like that happen, it just makes me laugh.
Oh, it's the best. It's so funny. Oh yeah, that whole thing is, oh god, that is a whole other story in itself. That shit's funny. Um, but now we've, obviously talked about a lot of what we don't like about this film. So with that, let's go ahead and point out our silver lining, our one positive for this Zodiac movie. I'm sure there's plenty you could say about the other one, but for this one, what's the one positive you took?
I ultimately went with the story behind the making of this is so insane and unique and one of a kind and hilarious. Just Tom Hansen's desire to be the man who caught the Zodiac killer and the crazy lengths he went to get that is worth this piece of shit movie just to have that story.
There's your title, the man who almost caught the Zodiac killer.
Yep, that's it.
You
Almost is very being very generous there.
You put almost in parentheses.
Tom Hansen's like, I almost got the Zodiac killer. Like, oh, really? Were you on the investigation team? No, I made a movie in the 70s and he might have shown up. Unbelievable.
Oh god, I would watch that movie. That's a good one, because yeah, the story for this is fucking, it's bonkers, and it blows my mind that this has not been made into a film yet, or a TV show or something. This is insanity. A TV show would actually not even be a bad idea. Like, actually chronicle the making up to the release. Oh my god.
I would.
Yeah, this would.
We should write this thing, man.
God, this would be. I would watch this in a heartbeat. Get Nicolas Cage to play Tom Hansen.
Oh yes.
Like an older Tom Hansen recounting the story.
But who talks about it like, Quint talking about the Indianapolis. Like, I was there that day.
Oh.
I almost had him. The elusive Zodiac killer. He escaped my grasp. And this is how I almost had him. then the show.
Oh my god, yes. All right. Oh my god. So for me, I put one single little scene. And I'm going to preface with, I know David Fincher did a lot better in Zodiac, because that's a scene that still stood the test of time to me in my head that I will never forget. And in this case, I put the quick scene, the more infamous killings, but the couple being killed at the lake. I think it's the only time this film actually gets close to being tense and also doesn't hold back. I did appreciate that they did not hold back at all at that point. Like I said, it was the only time in the whole film where I went, okay, where's the rest of this? Like, this is generally like kind of tense. Like, much again, for those who don't know about this killing, why it's kind of infamous, it's because it happened in literally broad daylight. It was a couple that were chilling at the lake in there. I forget the name of the lake in the area, but they were on a nice little romantic getaway, having some fun. And I don't mean like sexy time, I mean like just having a fun time as a couple. And the Zodiac came out covered head to toe, could not see his face or anything, and just came out and shot and killed them both. He shot the guy, I believe, and stabbed the woman multiple times or something like that. Right.
He stabbed him both multiple times. Okay. He lived. The guy lived.
That's right. Okay, yeah. They stabbed him multiple times and the guy lived. That's why that story has become so well known, is because the guy was able to recount it. And it's become one of the more infamous parts of it. Again, Fincher did it really great and shown in a very realistic manner in his film. And yes, this is a much more low budget take on it, a little bit more grainy, because this film has only been preserved so much. But real credits due. It is like the closest this film gets to being tense, And again, when you see them stabbing them, it does not hold back. It lingers on it. You could argue, yes, that's getting very close to being the line of exploitative, but I think for that particular thing, you got to see it to really get the full effect of like how vicious this shit was, and for people in San Francisco at the time.
I agree with that. It is necessary to witness the crime yourself to understand why everybody was so terrified, what these people went through, what this guy was capable of. You do need to see it. And I think Fincher pulls it off. And to an extent in this movie, like I said earlier, the recreation of the actual murders was done pretty well. So there you go.
Yeah. So I was wondering, I put it sounds like when I put it, I was like, it's kind of gonna come at me because of the Fincher, because of Fincher Zodiac on this one. I was like, am I really gonna? I was like, that's what I was like. I preface, I understand, like obviously our Fincher knocked it out of the park, but yes, to Hanson's credit, this is a decent. It's a decent scene. It's a decent enough scene, and it made me kind of wish the rest of the film had this level of quality at least.
Well, here's the thing. Fincher's Zodiac is a prime, perfectly aged porterhouse, whereas this movie is a gas station corn dog. Like, I know what it is. I'm not going to compare it to the porterhouse. That'd be inane. So it is what it is. It's a corn dog. If you're going to eat a corn dog, you're not expecting gourmet. It's a corn dog.
Fair enough. Well, then, on that note, if we are good to wrap up our awards, it's time to stop talking about the film ourselves and find out what everyone else is saying and see what's in the box.
What's in the fucking box? Give me the gun.
The Zodiac Killer is rocking a 2.6 out of 5 on Letterboxd. A lot of people praising the, 70s porno vibe and just kind of enjoying this wacko movie.
It does kind of have that vibe. I'll give him credit on that one.
Yeah. But I do have 5 here that made me laugh, and I hope they can make you laugh. This first one's from Emily. This exploitation flick was apparently created to lure the real Zodiac into the theater. All caps. Do you think he saw it? Low cap, no caps. Trashy and gritty, 3 stars. And yeah, everyone's thinking the same thing. Like, was he there? Did he think like, oh, yeah, this is fucking horrible?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, was he there and he just obviously changed his handwriting to make sure no one got him?
Yeah, I mean, it's, the guy that they think was the Zodiac, guy named Arthur Lee Allen, was ambidextrous. He could change his handwriting. He wrote 2 different styles with each hand, and the police never looked at the other hand because they could never get enough to get this guy. It was just too much coincidence. So yeah, easily. Crazy. Right when they were gonna go after him, he had a heart attack and he died.
That's what I heard. What happened was like they were literally finally going to go after him and hopefully put this case to rest, and he died.
And guess what died with him? The Zodiac letters. Not another one was ever sent. Not another murder was ever committed. Sometimes life's not fair. This next one's from Jason Plow. Fun trash. Grover is actually a more unlikable character than the Zodiac Killer. 4 stars. Right? I mean, God.
He's not wrong, because look, you have that one scene where like the couple finds fucking the Zodiac on the beach just grilling some hot dogs, and they have a decently nice enough conversation, and he only gets mad when the guy ruffles through his bags, which if you don't know he's the killer, I kind of get it. I'm like, I'd be like, dude, why are you going through my stuff? That's my shit. Why are you going through it?
I love Zodiac's little interaction with that guy. He later rolls into traffic. And he's like, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing all right. Well, that's good to hear. And then later he just like gets pissed off and just rolls that fucker into the subway. But yeah.
Grover, though, not a single redeemable quality.
Nah. Bad husband, bad father, bad human being, bad truck driver, bad toupee. A lot going on there. This next one's from Jarrett. You know what I always felt was missing from Fincher's Zodiac? that Grover guy. And Gyllenhaal and Ruffalo definitely don't call enough women bitches. 3 stars.
Everyone's just attacking Grover. He's hands down the worst.
This next one's from Shannon Briggs. David Fincher can sleep peacefully. 2.5 stars. Yeah, no one's touching that one.
No. I don't think he ever worried about not sleeping peacefully.
I'm sure when he did his research and was prepping that, meticulously, because he's David Fincher, he stumbled upon this and thought, yeah, I can do better. But hell, so did I. And this last one's from Johann Rucker. The real-life Zodiac killer was believed to have gotten extreme sexual satisfaction from his murders, especially those perpetrated against women. Imagine, somehow, making a film that is more misogynistic than that. Just imagine. 1.5 stars. This movie is more misogynistic than the actual fucking killing spree of the Zodiac killer. Ooh.
Kind of not wrong for being honest. This film, I was like, does the writer director for this just really hate women? Like, I don't know if he's trying to catch the killer or just despises women, because holy shit.
It does have this vibe of like, talking to a certain person in the audience, like, women are bitches, right? Don't you agree? Isn't this grinding your gears? Aren't you getting all pent up, making make a scene, huh? Possibly, and allow me to make that citizen's arrest. So it could be just for the benefit of playing the crowd.
Got you, you son of a bitch. You think he like practice that line in the mirror every day before? Like, he's like, all right, I gotta practice. Got you. No, that doesn't sound good. I got you. Too much emphasis. Like, he just sat there just practicing his line from when he would catch this guy.
I bet this was his, this was his moment. This is so worth exploring in a miniseries or something. There's a story about an unhealthy obsession here that could be a great meta comedy. We got to look into this.
Yeah. This, of all the things we talked about, has like the most potential for a legit, like, actual like movie or TV show or something.
Right? Oh my god.
My god. But if that's all that's in the box, all good things must come to an end. So before I reveal what next week's episode is, be sure to follow us on social media. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under FILMGAZM Productions. If you want to shoot us a recommendation, feel free to email us at filmgazm@gmail.com. If you'd like to donate and support us in that way, find us on Anchor. Finally, feel free to go on our site, filmgazm.com, for reviews, shows, articles, and all of our episodes. Also, look us up on Letterboxd, Connor95. If you want to do that, he has all of us friended on there, and you can catch our reviews on there as well on what we think, especially of newer releases. With that, next week we'll be taking a look at the Love It or Hate It Adam Sandler comedy film. I know I firmly fall on the Love It. We'll find out where Connor falls next week. The Waterboy.
Yeah, I'm psyched. Sandler, his early stuff is all pretty damn reliable, but he's got a lot of stinkers too. The Waterboy's one I've always heard is really funny, but apparently critics didn't know that. So we're gonna explore and see what we can find here.
Yeah, should be fun. Exploring Sandler. Obviously, there's much more worthy Sandler films to put on here, but I figured, hey, why the hell not finally do something I actually enjoy? Everyone else, the critics hated. Fuck it. Just for a change of pace after so many weeks of just being like, oh my god. On Filmgasm, they'll be taking a look at the 1994 take on the Wolfman mythos with Wolf.
Yeah, Wolf's gonna be fun. I know nothing about this. I just know Jack Nicholson is a werewolf, and that is all I needed to know. So, yeah, this is gonna be a blast.
Yeah, should be fun. I know it's a take on the Wolfman mythology, and I've heard good things. I haven't seen it myself yet, but I've heard really good things. And on Oscar Sunday, Nobody taking like the 1999 sci-fi action fucking Keanu Reeves classic, The Matrix. The one where he goes, whoa.
Yeah, this is a long time coming. So FILMGAZM bonus, we kind of half-assed. So we've been looking for an opportunity to redo this on Oscar Sunday proper, and the time has come. So can't wait for that.
Yeah. So on next Sunday, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to take either the red or blue pill. You have a choice to make. There is a right choice. No, should be a lot of fun. I fucking love The Matrix. It's one of my favorite fucking action films, and Keanu Reeves, all joking aside, really actually like good in that movie. He plays the role like it should be played. We like to make fun of it, but I look forward to listening because Matrix is fucking awesome. At least the first one. I don't really care for like any of the sequels. But until then, if you're feeling compelled to find a way to catch a notorious serial killer, reconsider making a movie to do it. Something tells me it won't work. See y'all next week on Beyond the Bad.